As the state finalizes its budget, we're taking a deeper look at funding for higher education.
Almost $30 million will likely be cut from UM System's budget for fiscal year 2018, and that comes as the system's already facing financial challenges.
In a special report, ABC 17's Alyssa Toomey dug into the budget cuts and how higher education is changing in our state.
Yeah, believe it or not, decreased state support for higher education is not exclusive to Missouri. In fact, it's a growing trend across the nation. So I decided to dig into the question of who should pay for higher education, the state or the student. I can tell you this much, it is not an easy answer. Sam Willow is a junior at Mizzou who's studying political science. He says he chose to attend MU because the cost made it the most practical option. Still, he will graduate thousands of dollars in debt.
It's terrifying. I mean, my dad is still paying off his student loans from law school, so, and the price has only gone up, and a law degree has become worth less.
Sam's story speaks to a greater trend across the nation as the burden of paying for higher education shifts from the state to the student.
Lower levels of state support that lead to higher tuition is a phenomenon that we're seeing all across the United States.
Statistics support what President Choi is saying. Since the recession in 2008, state spending per student has decreased in almost all 50 states. President Choi says he expects about $30 million in state funding to be cut from the UM system's core budget.
A $30 million cut is a significant cut to our budget. It represents, in essence, eliminating half the funding for UMSL that comes from the state. At Mizzou, it represents eliminating the School of Engineering and the School of Business.
There are a handful of states that have been hit with larger cuts, but our numbers are nothing to celebrate. In fact, the UM system says Missouri ranks 46th in per capita funding for higher education. In our neighboring states, per capita state spending is significantly higher. Missouri is also lower than the national average, but that hasn't stopped legislators from putting higher ed funding on the chopping block.
Medicaid is the largest component of the state budget. We've tried to make higher education a priority. But when it comes down to having to make a decision between paying our Medicaid bills or, spending on discretionary things like higher education, we have to pay our bills.
Another contributing factor, the 2015 protests at Mizzou.
A lot of the funding cuts politically was reactionary to some of the events that happened on the university. And I think that Mizzou still gets a lot of bad press for that.
Is there still resentment towards the university after everything that happened?
So I think that there is still some resentment. Yes, I think that there is. I would like for us to get through a couple months without there being some story about the university and something stupid that they did. That would help.
If the resentment is shared by cutting our budget, I'd like to ask you to reflect on the impact to our students.
In his first president's report last week, Dr. Choi said he estimates the UM system's economic impact to be between $3 and $4 billion. So who should pay for higher education? That all comes down to who you ask.
The state support for higher education institutions is optional, quite frankly.
I think if we're cutting discretionary funding and we limit the amount that we're putting into higher education, I think it has somewhat of a domino effect in the future, with a less skilled, less able workforce.
An expert with the Columbia Chamber of Commerce tells me there is a direct correlation between the cost of education and having an educated workforce. Meanwhile, students and parents are feeling the effect as the state works to balance its budget.
Unless something drastically changes soon, we're going to only see this get worse.
So maybe we need to look at a better way to fund higher education, and maybe the best way to do that is to empower the students through scholarships to make the decisions. And maybe that's something we should look at.
And I have more from all of these interviews, as well as a breakdown of how tuition at Mizzou compares to other universities on our website, abc17news.com.